Hello, and welcome back to Let's Get Lit. In today's episode, we're going to be going over the why and the book review for John Milton's Paradise Lost. Join me as we dissect the classic and why it's an important text, and why it's considered a classic throughout the ages, and is it really worth your time to read? Let's start off with the why. I'm really going to have a couple of points of dissection as to why I think this book is very important. I'll go through it theologically, but then also critically about what is so great about this book. Then later on in the video, I'll get onto my emotional reasons as to why I think it's really important and why I really like it. The first point that I'm going to come from is from a critical standpoint as to it being a classic. One of the first reasons is the fact that it's all written in free verse. This is very similar to Homer's The Odyssey and the Iliad, and it's kind of also in line with Dante's Inferno. It's a very grand structure that you see time and again throughout classic literature, and it's very recognizable. The second item that makes this story familiar with most people is that whether or not they're religious, they've heard of this story of Christianity, of God, of Satan, that he fell, Adam and Eve, etc., etc. However, what most people don't know or going into it is exactly all the detail, or kind of like the reason why. And that's where I think this story is great, because it takes a story that on the outside seems very simplistic and very by the numbers 1, 2, 3, but then flips it on its head and makes it more detailed and more understanding for us, where it kind of fills in those clues. Now, is this completely accurate? No. John Milton wrote it as kind of fan fiction, is what I joke around and say, but it kind of is, because it's definitely trying to take those puzzle pieces and put them together for you. And I think this is really great because Milton also kind of asks these theological questions along the way, as in the whole chess game versus God versus Satan. And you see throughout the story that Milton always gives God the upper hand, which is fantastic, and so he allows these things to happen. Now, the angels and man have no idea why he lets these things happen, but Milton says that God knows and that it's all part of his plan, which is still really cool. My next thing is that seeing the rise and fall of Satan, and from a critical standpoint, from heaven to hell and going up and deceiving man, is very interesting, because you see that internal pride and also hatred and anger and resentment, and there's reasons behind it, especially with the Great War in Heaven when we get to chapter 6 and 7, and the archangel comes down and tells Adam and Eve what happened. It's really cool to see all the pieces fit together, and it's really cool to see Satan's tragic flaw with the anger and with the revenge. Now, I do want to preface this. I have seen some people say that Satan is like Prometheus, giving fire to humans by having Eve eat the apple, or by the fruit. It doesn't really call it apple, but I want to jump in and say that's not what Milton's saying at all. Milton is not making Satan a sympathetic character. He is not making him some sort of unsung hero or anti-hero. That is not the point here. What Milton is doing is just showing his flaws, but also writing Satan as he's described in the Bible, which is a very smooth talker, a very cunning artist with his tongue, and how he's able to really influence or to sell people on things that he knows are bad for them. Satan's whole mission is to corrupt man, not give man a gift. So don't get that confused. One of the theological questions that a lot of people have, and why Adam eats the fruit, primarily why Adam eats the fruit, because you hear from the story from the beginning that Adam is very faithful. Adam loves God, Adam worships God, of course, because God is his creator. And from the story, it didn't really make sense from the Bible, because it's like, well, if Adam knew so much, how would he do this, or why would he do this? But Milton gives more explanation in the story. Milton kind of fills in the dots. He says, of course, that Eve was tricked, which is biblically true, and she ate the apple. But what Milton adds is this extra layer of love and care that Adam has for Eve. And so we see in Paradise Lost, where Adam eats the apple of his own free will. I keep saying apple, it's fruit of his own free will, because he loves her so much he doesn't want to be separated from her. And so that's a really strong reasoning, and Milton sets it up all the way in the beginning, just how much Adam loves Eve. So this works really well and gives more depth to the characters. Also, coming from a Christian standpoint, growing up in the church, I always thought Adam and Eve as very simplistic, black and white, very kind of silly or very simple people, but Milton throws that out the window. Milton makes them complex and very loving and have all these emotions that we feel as humans. So it's really nice to see that actual humanization of these characters that we've read about or people know from the beginning of time. I really appreciate that Milton has done. And I think that's kind of another reason that it's taught. It's very important, is because he's giving these human characteristics and reasons that we can relate to them. Another reason I believe this is very important is because of the grandioseness of the story. Milton spares no detail when it comes to describing things, whether it's the war, whether it's Eden, whether it's heaven, whether it's hell. He is very descriptive. And what's really cool is he takes all of these little tidbits from other types of literature and puts them in Paradise Lost. He mentions things from ancient Greece to ancient Mesopotamia to certain demons to all sorts of like how it connects in the world. So no matter if you're a Christian or of another different faith, he's going to mention something that's going to be like, oh, I know that, or oh, I know that from my religion. And so it's really cool to see him kind of blend certain characters from other different religions or the same entity from different perspectives into this story. It's really cool. And it's really great to see all of this detail, though sometimes a little bit exaggerated or a little bit long. It's still really beautiful. Does it need all of it? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Now, those are just the reasons that I think critically that it's still taught, just for the importance of it. I think the humanization of characters, kind of the first fan fiction if you want to go that route, and just the grandioseness of it and what he's able to do with religious text and make it into this epic story. Now, from an emotional response, did I like this book? I did. I love this book. Now, as I said before in this video, I am Christian, not evangelical, but I have my own faith with God, I believe, etc., etc. But I've always questioned certain things in the Bible. Not on a blasphemous level, but just more of a detail trying to figure things out. So this story is really fun for me because I get to dive deep into it and I get to kind of see another person's perspective on the story that we all know. Again, the humanization of Adam and Eve, the deception and anger and betrayal of Satan and his fall, how he creates all of hell. It's just really cool. I like seeing how sin and death are personified with humans, and it's just really interesting. And I love that the archangels are described, and it's this whole war, and I like learning about that. Now, did that really happen? I don't know. But I think it's really cool to read about. And it, again, answers some questions that I've always had. Do I think that from a personal standpoint it's going to affect anybody's religion? I don't think so. I don't think this is going to make you question your faith. I don't think this is going to make you kind of question God or anything like that. I think just the opposite. I think it might spark more interest. I think it might spark more discovery, and I think it might spark more research, which I think is really cool. I've actually, since I've been kind of reading this book, I've been buying the Apocrypha, and I really want to get my hands on the Ethiopian Bible. So for me, it kind of has the opposite effect. It makes me want to dig in deeper. It makes me kind of want to learn more so I can pull out all the different things, see what's different from each translation of the Bible. Because before the King James, you had other versions. So I really want to see that. So this actually kind of sparked my interest, which I think is great for me. I think it's really fun. But don't worry, it is not going to affect your religion at all if you're Christian. If you're from a different faith, I actually recommend reading this just to kind of see this interpretation of the story. I think it's really going to be worth it. All in all, is this a good book? Yes. Do I think you should read it? I'm mixed on it. I think if you can handle the language of it, and I think if you can get into the free verse kind of style, go for it. If you need an audiobook, by all means, there are certain names and phrases that Milton uses that we don't use today in modern literature, or references that we really don't understand. Audiobook it, I think that'd be great, especially from someone who pronounces things very clearly and articulate very clearly. It'd be fantastic. If that's a little too much of a stretch, watch this series, because I've tried to break it down as easy as possible, and it's really quite a simple story once you get into it. So I think it's phenomenal. I think you should check it out. That being said, are there any versions of media copies of this? Sadly, there's not. I've tried looking everywhere for it. I cannot find anything that has a Paradise Lost television show or miniseries or movie or anything else. So unfortunately, there is no interpretation that way. So all in all, I enjoy it. If you're interested in religion or even interested in this story, check it out. I think you're going to have a great time. So that is all for today's episode. Join us in the next video as we start a brand new series. All right, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. You guys are amazing for pushing this channel, and I can't wait to see you next time. Have a great day. Bye.